The visiting locker room at Silverdome Stadium in Phoenix was nearly empty now. Most of the Seattle Storm players had already showered, changed, and made their way to the team bus for the flight home. The 17-14 loss to the Coyotes had left everyone drained, and the finality of ending the season with a 7-10 record hung heavy in the air. Coach Marcus Webb sat alone in the small coach's office adjacent to the locker room, still wearing his Navy Storm polo and khakis, staring at the stat sheet from a game. Devin Mitchell's final numbers were circled in blue ink: 8 catches, 94 yards, including the 6-yard reception that had put him over 12,500 career receiving yards. Fourth tight end in NFL history to reach that milestone. Marcus should have felt proud of that achievement. Instead, he felt empty. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," Marcus called, not looking up from the papers. "Coach, you got a minute?" Marcus looked up to see Devin Mitchell standing in the doorway, still in his uniform pants and a Storm t-shirt, his hair still damp from the shower. Something in Devin's expression immediately told Marcus this wasn't going to be a typical post-game conversation. "Of course, Dev. Close the door and have a seat." Devin closed the door behind him and settled into the folding chair across from Marcus's makeshift desk. For a moment, neither man spoke. The only sound was the distant hum of the stadium's ventilation system. "Hell of a milestone tonight," Marcus said finally, tapping the stat sheet. 12,500 yards. "That's something special, son." Devin nodded, but Marcus could see his heart wasn't in celebrating the achievement. "Coach," Devin said finally, his voice quieter than usual, "I need to tell you something." Marcus set down the stat sheet and gave Devin his full attention. "I'm listening." Devin took a deep breath, and when he looked up to meet Marcus's eyes, there was a clarity there that Marcus hadn't seen from him in months. "I'm done," Devin said simply. "This was my last game." The words hung in the air between them. Marcus felt his stomach drop, even though he'd been preparing for this conversation all season. "You sure about this?" Marcus asked, his voice gentle. "You know I always tell guys to take some time, get away from the emotions of the season before making big decisions." Devin shook his head. "I'm sure, Coach. More sure than I've been about anything in a long time. I made the decision walking off that field tonight. I saw Sienna in the stands and it just hit me. I'm ready for what comes next." Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying the young man he'd watched grow from a talented but unfocused rookie into one of the greatest tight ends in the game. "What comes next?" "Being a husband," Devin said without hesitation. "Being present for the people I love. Building something with Sienna that isn't constantly interrupted by training camps and playoff runs and everything that comes with this life." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. In that moment, he wasn't looking at Devin Mitchell, the NFL star. He was looking at a young man who'd figured out what really mattered in life and who had the courage to act on that knowledge. "Devin," Marcus said, his voice thick with feeling. "In 35 years of coaching, I've had a lot of conversations with players about retirement. Some guys get forced out by injury. Some guys hang on too long and leave with regret. Some guys walk away bitter about how things ended." He paused, searching for the right words. "But what you're doing right now, son, this is how champions leave the game. You're walking away on your own terms, at the top of your abilities, because you found something more important than football. That takes a special kind of wisdom." "It doesn't feel like wisdom, Coach. It feels scary as hell." Marcus smiled, the first genuine smile he'd managed since the game ended. "The best decisions usually do feel scary at first. But let me tell you something, Dev. I've watched you for 11 years. I've seen you in the biggest moments, under the most pressure, when everything was on the line. And you know what? You always rise to the occasion. You always find a way to be great when it matters most." Marcus's voice grew stronger, more confident. "You think that's going to change just because you're not wearing a football uniform anymore? You think you're suddenly going to stop being Devin Mitchell just because you're not catching passes?" "I guess I hadn't thought about it that way," Devin admitted. "Well, think about it this way," Marcus continued, leaning forward with the intensity he usually reserved for explaining crucial game plans. "On July 21st, you're going to marry Sienna Cross. You know what that is, Dev? That's your next championship game. That's your next Super Bowl." Devon felt a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth despite the emotional weight of the conversation. "And you know what I know about you," Marcus continued, his voice growing warmer. "I know that you're going to prepare for that wedding and for that marriage the same way you prepared for every big game you ever played. You're going to give it everything you have." He stood up from his chair and walked around the desk to sit on the edge of it, closer to Devon. "You're going to practice being a great husband the same way you practiced being a great tight end, every single day, with purpose and dedication and love. And you know what? You're going to dominate that position just like you dominated this one." Devon was openly crying now, not caring that tears were streaming down his cheeks in front of the man who'd been his mentor and father figure for over a decade. "Coach, I don't know how to thank you," Devon managed to say through his emotion. "You don't need to thank me," Marcus replied, his own eyes glistening. "You know how you thank me. By being as good a husband to Sienna as you were a teammate to the guys in that locker room. By loving her with the same passion and commitment you brought to this game. By making her feel as valued and supported as you made every player in that room feel." Marcus's voice cracked slightly as he continued. "Devon, I've had the privilege of coaching some incredible players over the years. Hall of Famers, Super Bowl champions, guys who changed the game. But I want you to know something. You're the one I'm most proud of. Not because of your stats or your records or even your championships, because of who you are as a person. You came into this league as a young man with incredible talent but no real understanding of what it meant to be a professional, to be a leader, to be someone other people could count on," Marcus continued. "And over these 11 years, I've watched you become all of those things and more. I've watched you become someone who makes everyone around him better just by being himself." Marcus paused, collecting his thoughts. "But you know what makes me most proud? Watching you figure out that there's something even more important than being great at football. Watching you choose love. Watching you choose happiness. Watching you choose to build a life with someone who clearly brings out the best in you." "She does, Coach. Sienna makes me want to be better than I ever thought I could be." "That's what great partnerships do," Marcus said with a gentle smile. "That's what Linda did for me 38 years ago, and that's what she still does every day. You find someone who sees all of who you are, the good parts and the parts you're working on, and loves all of it. And then you spend the rest of your life trying to deserve that love." Marcus's expression grew more serious, more paternal. "Devon, I want to tell you something that I want you to remember on your wedding day, and on your first anniversary, and when you and Sienna are celebrating your 25th anniversary." "What's that, Coach?" "You are going to be an incredible husband. Not because you're famous or successful or wealthy, but because you understand what it means to be part of something bigger than yourself. You understand what it means to put the team first, to sacrifice for your teammates, to show up even when things are difficult." Marcus's voice grew stronger, more declarative. "Marriage is the ultimate team sport, son. It's two people deciding to face everything life throws at them as a unit. And if there's one thing I know about Devon Mitchell, it's that when you commit to a team, you give it everything you have." "I love her so much, Coach," Devon said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I love her more than I ever thought I could love anybody." "I can see that," Marcus replied. "I could see it in the way you looked at her after games, in the way you lit up when you talked about her, in the way you changed for the better after she became part of your life. And you know what else I can see? I can see that she loves you just as much." Marcus stood up and placed his hands on Devon's shoulders. "Devon Mitchell, you have been one of the greatest players I've ever coached. But more than that, you've been like a son to me. I have loved watching you grow into the man you are today, and I cannot wait to watch you grow into the husband you're going to become." "You really think I'm making the right decision?" Devon asked, needing that final reassurance from the man whose opinion meant more to him than almost anyone's. "I think you're making the only decision that makes sense for someone who's figured out what really matters in life," Marcus said firmly. "You've won 2 Super Bowls, Dev. You've broken records. You've had a career that most guys can only dream of. But you know what the greatest victory of your life is going to be." Devon shook his head. "It's going to be 50 years from now when you and Sienna are sitting on your porch somewhere, looking back on a life filled with love and happiness and maybe some little Mitchells running around, and realizing that you made all the right choices, that you chose love over fame, happiness over statistics, building something meaningful over just accumulating more achievements. Marcus pulled Devin into a hug, something he rarely did with players, but something this moment demanded. "I am so proud of you," Marcus whispered. "As a coach, as a mentor, and as someone who loves you like family. You are making the right choice, and you're making it for the right reasons." They held the embrace for several seconds, both men emotional about the end of an era that had defined both their careers in Seattle. When they finally pulled apart, Marcus wiped his eyes and tried to regain some of his composure. "Now," he said, his voice lighter, "I believe there's a young woman waiting for you who probably wants to hear about this conversation." Devin laughed, the first genuine laugh he'd had since before the game. "Yeah, she's probably wondering what's taking so long." "Well, you go tell Sienna Cross that Marcus Webb gives his complete blessing to this retirement decision, and that I couldn't be happier that she's getting the best husband in the world on July 21st. "I will, Coach. I definitely will." As Devin stood to leave, Marcus had one more thing to say. "Devin, I want you to know that you're always going to be part of this family. When you and Sienna have kids, I want to meet them. When you need advice about marriage or life or anything else, you call me. When you're celebrating anniversaries, I want to celebrate with you. This isn't goodbye. This is just the start of a different kind of relationship. Thank you, Coach, for everything. For believing in me, for pushing me, for helping me become who I am today. I wouldn't be ready to make this decision if you hadn't taught me what it means to be part of something bigger than myself." Marcus smiled. "You did that work yourself, son. I just provided the environment. Now go make me proud as a husband the same way you made me proud as a player." Devin paused at the door. "Coach." "Yeah." "Will you be at the wedding?" Marcus's face broke into a wide grin. "Devin Mitchell, I wouldn't miss your wedding for all the Super Bowl rings in the world. Linda's probably already picking out a dress." "Good," Devin said. "Because I can't imagine that day without you there." After Devin left, Marcus sat alone in the small office for another 20 minutes, processing everything that had just happened. He'd known this conversation was coming for weeks, maybe months, but experiencing it, seeing the peace and certainty in Devin's eyes, hearing the love in his voice when he talked about Sienna, witnessing a young man make the choice to prioritize love and happiness over everything else, had been more moving than he'd anticipated. Marcus thought about his own career, his own choices, the things he'd sacrificed for football and the things football had given him in return. He thought about Linda and how she'd supported every decision he'd made, even when those decisions meant missing family dinners and school plays and quiet evenings at home. But mostly, he thought about how proud he was of Devin Mitchell, not for the catches or the yards or the championships, but for becoming the kind of man who understood what truly mattered in life and who had the courage to act on that understanding. When Marcus finally made his way out to the team bus, he found Devin and Sienna sitting together in the back, her head on his shoulder, both of them looking more at peace than Marcus had seen them look all season. "Everything good?" Marcus asked as he passed their seats. "Everything's perfect, Coach," Devin replied, squeezing Sienna's hand. "Better than perfect." As the bus pulled away from Silverdome Stadium and began the journey to the airport, Marcus looked out the window at the Phoenix lights and thought about endings and beginnings, about championships and love, about young men who knew when to fight and when they'd already won. In a few months, he'd be sitting in the front row of a wedding ceremony, watching Devin Mitchell begin the most important game of his life. And Marcus Webb would be beaming with pride, knowing that his former tight end was going to dominate that game the same way he dominated everything else he'd ever set his mind to. The greatest victory of Devin Mitchell's career was just 6 months away, and it wouldn't be measured in yards or touchdowns or trophies. It would be measured in love, in commitment, in the choice to build something beautiful with the person who mattered most to him. And Marcus Webb couldn't wait to watch him win it all.